I'm Chris and the mum. It's Friday then. No. We're not having a zebra tonight, everyone.
No,
so that's
no
the most
zebras.
you're going to get. That's the most you're going to get.
Daz is gone, so there are no zebras. The zebra has been banned and is long gone, long gone. So, Pete, we've got one of your lads on tonight. Over to you, my friend, to introduce.
Well, it's a pleasure, really. I've been fortunate enough to do some pods recently with our guest tonight, who's part of the True Faith. And I said to him talking today about the show that actually, when we started Loaded Mag, we identified some guests that we wanted on this show, and we all were in agreement that tonight's guest, Alex, was one of those, because he knows his stuff about Newcastle, well respected within the fan base, and more importantly, we'd just like to share opinions with Alex on our show. So it goes without saying that it's absolutely a pleasure to welcome him to the show. So let's get him on.
Evening, lads.
There he is. Evening, mate. How are you?
Evening, Alex.
Great to be here.
Welcome to Loaded Mag.
Yeah, welcome, mate. Look, we're not going to beat around the bush. We're going to get straight into things. Thank you for coming on. It's been an interesting week, as it always is, with Newcastle United and within the fan base. And there are obviously a number of things that have kind of happened within this week that you may well be best placed to sort of give your response and maybe an answer to some of the questions. So what we'll say first and foremost is to the guys in the chat, get your questions into Alex, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to answer. But first and foremost, obviously, we had Keith on our show, Keith Patterson on our show Tuesday night. And there were some questions in the chat with regards to the pledge and potentially it being used alongside the fan action, which was discussed on the show. I don't know whether you want to sort of like just reiterate the stance of the pledge and how the pledge works and what that money is used for. And I think that maybe ties into something that, that Martin was going to ask as well. So we'll probably answer that together. I don't know whether you want to add to that, Martin, but we'll get straight into it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it'd be good for Alex to kind of take us through, obviously, getting into the trust. And, there's a few questions we've got. Obviously, as you said, we've got people thrown in. I have a couple of questions that I've had people who can't be on tonight but have sent in to me. So, yeah, really just, obviously I'm a member of the trust, but really it's, I suppose for us, it's known a bit more. You were, kind of head of the trust for a long while. So really, I suppose very, very quickly, how did you get into it? The trust and the pledge, how's that meant to work? People are putting in, either direct debit or throwing cash in. So there's a few questions around, the club and, fan ownership and everything else. You look at the likes of, I think it's Motherwell, is it? One of the biggest, I think it will be Hearts, sorry, yeah. Will be kind of 98% fan owned in the next couple of weeks. So take us through the pledge and just kind of what that meant, the setup of it, and where you see it as it currently stands.
Yeah, thank you very much. The 1892 pledge scheme essentially is it's an attempt for Newcastle United supporters en masse to try and one day influence the way the club is run. Now, I believe in fan ownership, not just for Newcastle United, but all clubs. But we have a specific set of difficult circumstances at Newcastle United where fans aren't basically considered. You know, would fans have replaced Rafa Benitez with Steve Bruce? I think you know the answer. And look, I could spend this whole show talking about things fans wouldn't have done and Mike Ashley did, so we'll not go there. But we thought, I mean, you mentioned the 1% thing there, and that's interesting that you mentioned that, because although it's true we have an ambition to one day own 1% of the club, that is an absolute bare minimum. Do you know what I mean? I keep hearing this, what could you do with 1%? Well, the 1% thing is not really why we're doing this. We want Newcastle United to be fan-owned one day. And we took a lot of guidance from Hearts. We know the guys at Hearts really well. 14 million quid they've raised. And I hear people say, well, it's Scotland. Well, you know, the guys at Hearts think, well, it's Newcastle United. If we can raise 14 million quid, how much could you raise? And there's a different set of circumstances. But ultimately, you guys will know, and your viewers will know, how many football clubs fall out of the Premier League and it takes them 20 years to return? How many football clubs fall out of the Premier League and then it's League One or sometimes League Two? We took a lot of interest in what happened down the road at Sunderland in 2018 when their owner, Ellis Short, who was nowhere near as bad known as Mike Ashley, by the way, sold the club for just £5 million cash. And we thought they should have been organised. Their fans really should have been organised in that situation. And listen, I don't know loads about Sunderland. I don't watch the lower leagues, but you know the fact of the matter is, a lot of Sunderland fans think the bloke that bought their club was a chancer who wanted to flip it. Now, I could name 20, 30 football clubs, fans who've been through the same thing. When they're in trouble, they attract the worst type of people in football who think, we'll get them in the Championship, it'll be easy. We'll get them in the Premier League, it'll be easy. And it doesn't work out, and they don't have any money. We all know the owners and directors tests, not just in the Premier League, but the EFL as well, on fit for purpose. So a big motivation of the pledge scheme was to do a little bit of that work early. I'll give you an example, Wigan. Wigan were flying in the Championship, one of the best teams in the Championship in season 1920. They weren't losing loads of money. They got bought out by who no one knows, and you know, subsequently their owners bought them and put them in administration. Now you could say it'll never happen to Newcastle United. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. And it's, you know, sat here in the Premier League. I'm in Birmingham tonight. I've driven down. I'm in my hotel room here before Villa tomorrow. All of that seems a long way away. But Wigan fans had to start a campaign for fans to put between 850 and £2,500 into their club to save it, and they didn't manage it. Lots of fans put it in, but they didn't manage it. You know, speak to Bournemouth fans, speak to Hearts fans, speak to Rangers fans, speak to Bradford fans, speak to Notts County fans, speak to Grimsby fans. I could go on and on and on, where football fans have been expected to put serious sums of money into their club to save it. So we thought, you know, that taking the lead from Hearts, let's set up the scheme now. Let's get ready for the worst case scenario. I don't want Newcastle to get relegated. I don't want them to be in League One and get sold for £5 million. You know, Emil Kraft costs more than Sunderland Football Club. It's ridiculous, isn't it? If all jokes aside, how big a club Sunderland are in League One, like how big a club they are, the fact that they were so vulnerable, we want to be ready for that. And if fans can give a couple of quid a month, 10 quid a month, we've currently got 2,300 fans paying an average of £9 a month. We've got 20 grand a month coming in. We've had over 6,000 fans publicly donate, including Alan Shearer, who supported us publicly and is fully behind the idea. Lots of other ex-players, some notable celebrities are behind the idea, but they've donated in private, and I respect that their right to privacy. It's not for me to start naming names and stuff like that. And the idea, this is long-term. If you can stick in a £5 a month to the pledge scheme for the next 10 years, I want the club to be bought and sold by a good owner, someone who's got vision for Newcastle United, and we don't need it, and it goes to charity. Under that scenario, I'm happy. Everyone at the trust is happy. But we want to be ready now. We really want to be ready. And if this does build for a few years, and we've got approaching 150 grand. We haven't even been going 6 months. We've got 150 grand. That's Newcastle fans, by the way, from all over the world, coming together, giving what they can in 150 grand. It's not an insignificant amount of money. If we keep that up next year, 2 years, 5 years, however long Ashley's here and beyond, it'll become a serious amount of money. And if the club does change hands when it's in the Premier League, which I hope it does, I think everyone watching this show, that's your preferred method of Ashley departing in the Premier League. Good owner, ambition for the club. They've paid a fortune for the club, so they're going to want the club to do really well. Then we could say to them and say, listen, we've got this money. Would you give us some sort of percentage of the club? And the 1% thing, even though I say the 1% thing, I hear it loads, but it's a minimum. It's a bare minimum. I'd rather Newcastle United be 1% fan-owned than 0% fan-owned. And then why does it have to stop there? Why would we stop paying money into the club? It gives potential owners an exit strategy years down the line. This is the model across Europe at football clubs, where fans pay in every single year for their percentage membership to put money into the club. So we think it's a fan-driven idea. We're really lucky that so many thousands of people have bought into it. We're lucky that thousands continue to pay into it. It'll go up and down. It will go up and down. It's going to be, some months are going to be good. If the team does brilliant, it'll probably not be as good, and we all want the team to do brilliant. If the team start tanking, it'll probably do a bit better. And if we'll get relegated, which I don't think we'll get relegated even with Bruce in charge, but you know, there was a couple of results last season where it goes either way. Burnley away, we lose at Burnley away. Jesus Christ, what happens there?
Yeah,
the championship, and then I'll just I know I've gone on for a bit here, but just to remind you, you know, I hear this kind of, oh, Ashley's got a really good record of bringing Newcastle back up from the championship. Well, in 2009-10, we didn't have a permanent manager until October. We went into that season without a manager. How you know what championship club has ever just gone into the season just no manager? Just no manager. We're just not gonna get a manager in. Hugely lucky that there was enough talent in that squad, and everyone was for sale. Everyone was for sale, but the wages of the likes of Colaccini and Enrique and Gutierrez, who were unbelievable that year, couldn't be shifted. That's why they were here. That's why they played. For Andy Carroll came good, and in 2016, Rafa Benitez would argue he was lied to stay at the club. Is that good management? Is that good long-term management? He nearly walked away at the end of that season. It was what Rafa wants, Rafa gets. Until we'll get top of the league in January, it looks like we're going up. And then from that point on, it was always going to end badly. Is that good? Is that good sound management to secure your club out of the championship? So I don't think they'll be third time lucky. And I think when we're going to the championship, look down the championship table. Tell you who's got good owners. Stoke City have got good owners. Put a fortune in. Can it finish in the top half? So getting out of the championship gets harder every year. Our ownership seems to get worse every year. And I think you look at what Sunderland did. I'll always keep referring to Sunderland because they're so close to it, because we keep such a close eye on them. And I want us to be ready for that. I don't want it to happen. Anyone involved with this doesn't. The Guardians look after the money. We don't want it to happen. But God would rather be ready now and ask people for a little and what they can afford each month, rather than having to do what Wigan had to do to ask fans. And the choice is stark one. You need this money, the club might go into liquidation. And it's not fair, is it, that football fans are consistently put in that position. So the 1892 pledge scheme, it's to try and change the narrative and put football fans at the centre. And I'm prepared for it to continue to keep going for years and years and years. And to give you an idea, because you asked the question there about when does it end, we'll have some very strict pledge rules. So if the pledge doesn't grow by 10% in terms of its total net income in a year, so say you had 100 grand in the bank and the next year less than 10 grand came in, the Guardians, who look after the money, they're the people who control the money. So that's George Colkin of The Athletic, Lee Humble, who's a chartered accountant, Ian Mearns MP for Gateshead, and Newcastle Mad, and Warren Barton, former Newcastle player. These guys look after the money. They can take a vote and think, well, there was 9,500 came in, so it's worth doing. Or there was, they can take a vote amongst themselves to think, right, should we pack this in? That vote then has to be approved by the trust board, the sitting trust board. And if they agree with them, then it gets put to the membership. So there's a very, very severe process there to make sure this ever does end and the money goes to local charities in the Northeast, because that's what, if we can't buy the football club or part of the football club, that's where the money has to go. Members get a say. And in a perfect world, in addition, if there was some sort of deal to be done to buy a part of the football club or save the football club, members would also have to approve that. So it's all member driven. The money belongs to the trust. It doesn't belong to me or the four guys I've mentioned. They're just guardians. They just look after it. They're just the keepers of it. They keep an eye on the bank account. They're the ones who can transfer the money. The money belongs to the likes of you guys on the show and myself and everyone else who's with the trust to join in £1 a year thereafter. It belongs to everyone. It's everyone's money. It's the supporters pledge scheme. Yes, it's the trust's pledge scheme, but the trust is the Newcastle United. It's the supporters body of the Newcastle United support. It belongs to us. And final question I'll answer in this monologue. Absolutely not. Never in a million years could the money be used under any circumstances to fund anything other than the two purposes I've talked about. Number one, their shares in Newcastle United. And number two, to be paid to local charities. Without trying to be smart here, we didn't just kind of think of this idea and do it. It took 3 years to get off the ground. You know, we spoke to solicitors, several solicitors. We spoke to fans around the country, around the world. We spoke to business people. We spoke to people who've done this before. We spoke to fundraisers to make sure we got it right. And we ended up paying the best trust solicitor in the country, at Wrigley Solicitors in Leeds, to write the rules for this scheme. So under no circumstances can this, however good anyone, me, you, anyone watching might think that the idea is, and I don't think it is a good idea to use this money for anything else than it's intended for, but under no circumstances could it be, or anyone who donated into that scheme could put their hand up and say, you know, I've been fraudulently misled here. I was told my money would be used for these 2 reasons and these 2 reasons alone. Yeah. They've used it for someone else. You've committed fraud. So we took it very, very seriously. And this is the thing about public fundraising. I put my name to that. I put my name to the pledge scheme. I kind of led it. It was me, Norman Watson from the Trust. It was our idea. I started Gallagher Flags in 2016. I don't know if you remember that. And that went on to become War Flags. I put my name and address the first day of Gallagher Flags on the website so that people knew, you know, who's this? Where are you going to put, you know, there's lots of questions you get. Where are the flags go? No, it's me. I'm looking after your money. You know where I live. This is real. And any fundraising by any supporters for whatever reason, there needs to be transparency. We all demand transparency from the Premier League, which we don't get. We demand it from the football club, that we don't get. We should expect it from fans who want to raise money. And I know there isn't a GoFundMe for this thing. I don't even know if it's real. I've only kind of heard it from you guys. But that's my advice to anyone, is that if there's a public fundraising thing, you need to know who's behind it. You need to know who's accountable and who you say, what's going on with my money.
Yeah, well, I suppose to link into that, to go back to, obviously we had the show on Tuesday night, and to be fair, it's you know, the lads will probably chip in if I'm wrong, but to be fair, you know, Keith Patterson, who was on, obviously of NCSL, came up with the idea and quite rightly said, you know, I've been doing certain work. I've been doing certain things. I've been working with the club. I've been putting my money in. I've been doing whatever else. But, you know, this cat case thing, there's different ways to do it. And kind of came up with the idea. You know, it went out overloaded. And to say it exploded is probably an understatement. As a fan base, you know, Newcastle fans did what they do best. You had a proportion of fans that went, you know, Keith's a fraud. He's going to rob people. You know, it's not going to go against this. Who's going to set up the GoFundMe? This is a joke. And then you had the other half of the fan base going, that's a great idea. I'm in. You know, Martin, Pete, and Chris, where can I send you my money? So I suppose over the last couple of days, there's been a good bit of clarity that's come out from both us and from Keith. You know, I think Keith's intention and the idea, to be fair, the lads on Steve Ray's show tonight, the Amigos spoke about it. The thing that what it was really just to say that certain people, i.e. be it the Trust, be it Keith Patterson, be it whoever, have done things to a certain point with this takeover or with the pledge or with whatever. And I think the point that Keith was really trying to get out was there are other things that could be done, be it NUFC protest or whatever else, but it's time for other people maybe to take the forefront. And I think, you know, there were certain things that probably got out of hand in some of the comms that went out and different bits and pieces. But look, a lot of that's been reiterated this week and we know where we are. As you can see there, you know, Gary's put a question on, you know, why can't the money be used to link in with Keith? And as mentioned, and obviously you've said there now, you know, there is a certain expectation. These are the rules of the Trust. This is a very clear process, you know, and this is how it works. So I suppose from you know, one of the questions that I would link in that we kind of pre-spoke about, which is, and you did touch on there slightly, which is, so as it gets to a point, as you said, if less than that X percentage is coming in every month, the trustees of the four guys then make a decision and go, okay, do we keep the pledge going or do we do it off to the charity? If that decision is to make a decision, they then consult with the current sitting board of the trust. And then if they both make a conjoined decision that it goes out to a charitable area, that then gets put out to the members and the members get to vote. Who decides is it decided within the trust or by the trustees as to what charitable fund that goes to? Is it one charitable fund that's decided, or is it multiple charitable funds that could be decided upon, Alex?
It's entirely up to those guardians. We'll have to call them guardians for legal reasons.
Guardians, right? Sorry.
Trustees. Yeah, no, I used to call them trustees, and I used to keep getting it wrong myself. But yeah, it's up to them. I mean, by the way, I'm sure one of them or a few of them, they're all up for media and speaking to fans. So if you wanted one of those guys on the show, or all of them on the show, I'm sure that they'd be more than happy to come and speak to you and your viewers about that. But yeah, I don't want to put words in their mouth, so I don't want to second guess them. But that decision is entirely up to them. The only thing we stipulated is that the money has to go to charities that are registered with an address in the northeast of England. That's the only thing we stipulated. We didn't say what type of charity or 1 or 10 or whatever. We just said it must be a charity so that the money kind of stays in the region. That's all we put to the Guardians. The rest is up to them.
Okay. Chris, who's one of our regular viewers and has been on the show a couple of times, big American football fan. So he's saying, obviously, if the current consortium were allowed to buy the club, there's pretty much a zero prospect of PCP, the Rubens, or even PIF for that amount, kind of dropping their threshold of shares to allow, as you said, the minimum of the 1%, but then to grow that. So obviously that's held with the Premier League at the minute, and we'll kind of come back to that briefly in a while. But how then does that change? Let's say that current consortium get the go-ahead, Cap gets one, takeover gets given by and PIF, PCP and the Rubens get that deal. What does that then do? Does that then trigger then that same piece, or is that then discussions with the trust and with the club to see can fan partnership be bought into, or what happens there?
It's very hard for me to speculate. You know, I could say that, well, why wouldn't PIF give 1%? But then I have no idea what the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia would do with their shares. We were going to launch this in May 2020, and we decided not to because it looked like the club was going to be bought by the people that 97% of our membership. That's a famous figure now, that 97% of the trust membership wanted. So we're knocked it on the head, because why would we do this when whatever happens, whatever people think about the PIF consortium, I think everyone would agree we ain't going to end up in the Championship or League One under them. So that issue would just be off the table straight away. So we delayed it. But then we kind of thought, well, as the team continued to sink, lockdown football was horrible. We had no idea when we were going to be back in the ground. The manager was insulting the fan base. The club weren't paying fans their season ticket money back. And we thought, now is the time to act. Now is the time to do this. Now is the time to try and do something. I can't predict the future. I can't predict what will happen. But I feel much better knowing that if the worst was to happen, the takeover doesn't go through, we get relegated, that we're here when we're ready and we're set up. Do you know what I mean? So maybe if whenever these court cases are September, if they all go to plan and everything goes well, maybe the pledge isn't needed and it goes, you know what I mean? Those processes would still have to take place. But, you know, that wouldn't be that's not a bad solution. I mean, Newcastle United being taken over and the pledge not being needed, that's not a bad solution. Then we're raising for charity.
It's a touch of a win-win.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a lot of money already for charity. That's going to do a hell of a lot of good in this region. Well, I'm in Birmingham, but in the northeast. So it's all right. I'm all right with that. You know, PCP get in and PIF and they do what the majority of fans want to do. Then, yeah, the rules will still apply for the pledge scheme. People could pay into it, and then we'll still go through that process. But I'll not be losing any sleep if we'll have to cancel it and, you know, give it a charity and the club gets taken over.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
Alex, could I jump in just 1 second? Just to say, I was smiling to myself, you know, when you were articulating, you know, about the trust and that, you know, it's the fans' money. But it was funny because when you said it's your money, it's my money, and I was thinking, oh no. Because obviously what's been going on this week, everyone's been thinking, you know, about us setting up a collection, and it nearly stopped you when Alex, no, it's not our money. But now it just made me laugh when he said it. I was like, oh no, they're going to think it's our money. But then no, the way you explained it was, you know, absolutely spot on. But I just had a bit of a question for you, and I'll give my opinion, and then obviously I want to know your opinion. But this week especially, there's been a lot of people, you know, criticising the fact that Keith Patterson came onto this channel and basically said that he felt, you know, there was something we could do as a fan base. Now, obviously, his suggestion was to kind of set up, you know, like a GoFundMe or something like that. And I think a lot of fans felt that Keith was basically, trying to set it up for himself, which was absolutely not the case. He was merely suggesting, if anything, Keith was distancing himself from it and saying, listen, I don't want any involvement in this, but I think it's something that would be good. I know I've got a lot of contacts. I've got solicitors there who would happily take the case on, roughly talking about 100 grand if people would be interested. Now, obviously that created like this big whirlwind, and then people were, feeling very annoyed by it, or some people loved it, some people really didn't like it. But I just wanted to know your opinion on it, Alex, because for me, I always felt like, well, I thought that if people want to do that and want to be able to try and make a difference and try and make a stand, it's not even about the monetary value, even if it was a protest in itself, or, trying to drum up interest. I mean, I went to London for the transparency protest, and, I think there was between 200 and 300 people there, and it was really, really good. But when you saw what happened with the ESL, you saw what the Chelsea fans did, and you were talking thousands, weren't you? And I think Keith was just trying to drum up that little bit of interest. But obviously it was taken the wrong way, and then we were linked to it. But I just wanted to know your opinion, Alex, on what would you do in this circumstance? And again, I know this is only your opinion. I'm not suggesting that you're saying it's right or wrong, but what did you get a chance to watch the show the other night? If you didn't, don't worry, but I'm just wondering, as things stand, would you just be kind of keeping your powder dry and just seeing what will happen in September with the cat case, and letting the legals get on with it? Or do you think it is something as a fan base that we should be trying to do, or trying to take some action?
I have to caveat my answer with, I'm far from, I wouldn't even say an expert. I'm not even knowledgeable about cat cases or things like that. It's nothing I've ever dealt with professionally or personally. But to me, it seems like, I think Newcastle fans have done their bit. I think Newcastle fans have told the world what they think. I think that I worked with Amanda Staveley last summer, been in, contact with her since. She's a huge fan of the trust and what we've done. She gives us great feedback. She's not come to us saying, can you do a cat case? And I appreciate that wasn't what Keith was claiming. He was just saying he thinks it's a good idea, and he knows more about it than me. But personally, I think I'm concerned about Newcastle United in its current form, like we all are. And from a trust perspective, and I'm not on the board anymore, but I still work. I'm still essentially running the pledge scheme. Yeah. I think they feel, and Greg, the chair, feels, and again, I'm sure he'd be happy to come on the show, that he has to look at Newcastle United right now and what's going to happen. What happens if the takeover doesn't go through? What happens then? What's Ashley's plan? Ashley put a statement out talking about transparency. We, the trust, got 8,000 people to email their MP last year. We're very fortunate that there was a lad called Callum set it up with a really good tool to email your MP with a polite template. We didn't want to be rude, and aggressive, and shouty. Yeah. And we did what Amanda asked us, and that was to try and get some answers from Richard Masters. Now we did that. No other journalist managed that in the world. The MPs who tried to get answers didn't manage that, but Newcastle United fans managed it. So that shows you the power of people working together. 8,000 people, it's a lot of people. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot of people to get off their arse and do something. And yeah, it might just be writing a letter on, but that's a lot of people, 8,000 people, and it worked. And I got a lot of calls from MPs. Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson got involved. Ministers got involved. It was a real example of what we can do as a fan base when we channel our energy in the right way. But we did that, and then nothing happened. Nothing at all. And then all this court stuff about arbitration. In terms of fans putting money in, I would personally right now think it's a bad idea, because I think my understanding is that Ashley's hired literally the best people in the country to run this firm. There isn't anyone better. And I know it's arbitration, and you guys are talking about something separate on your show with Keith on through the week. But and there's a cat case going on. The professionals are on top of this or not. But again, I don't know. What I'm concerned about now, you put it quite well, Chris. I think as a fan, I'm waiting to see what happens next. But I'm in Birmingham tonight watching Newcastle play Villa tomorrow. That's my concern. That's what I'm about right now. Court cases and stuff like that. Can handle the court case, And Chris, you went to the protest. Like I said, it's easy to say things. It's another thing to actually do it. The fair play to you for going down and making your voice heard. That's the key, really. But also, I think Newcastle fans have done more for a takeover than any other fan base in Premier League history. Do you know what I mean? I think Newcastle fans have really made their voices heard, and we haven't heard anything from the buyers. We haven't heard anything from PIF since last July. There are a lot of Newcastle fans who I think it's over. It's not happening. So that has, you have to respect that as well. You have to take both sides of the story there. But personally, me, I wouldn't pay anything like that. But again, I would have to see, whoever ran it, you would want to see transparency, who was behind it, what their plan was if it didn't work, what the plan was if they raised, say, 70 grand, not 100 grand. It's important to get answers before you're almost running away with yourself thinking, let's raise 100 grand. Well, there's a lot of stages on the way, isn't it? Like the pledge scheme.
Yeah.
Pledge scheme could be running for 30 years. Do you know what I mean? That's how long term we're looking. So for me, I'm just worried about Villa tomorrow and what's going to happen this season rather than, and I'll let Nick DeMarco do his thing and hopefully get the result people want in September.
Yeah. Okay. One of the other questions that I got sent in, and you did speak very, very quickly about it there, is why did you step down from the trust? Was it just kind of time was up, or was it kind of like too much of the day job, or what was behind the decision for you to move away from it, Alex?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So when I relaunched the trust, well, I first joined the trust. I got invited to a meeting, basically as Gallagher Flags, since we started that in 2017, I think. Stayed around for a bit, got co-opted with the board. Some really, really good people on it, but it wasn't. It done some good things as well, but it wasn't what it should have been. There were administrative problems. It didn't really have any kind of membership to speak of. It didn't have the influence I thought it should. So I'd asked those lads who had basically kept it going single-handedly and done some great work if they wouldn't mind stepping aside and would relaunch it. And I put a board together. So my aim is when I did that in 2019, number one, wanted to attract a membership. We've done that. We'll have 15,000 members. Number two, we'll want to have an active trust that has a relationship with the club and is doing things in the community and has some achievements. We've done that, I feel. And number three, we want to have democratic elections every single year. Most trusts, because a lot of supporters trusts, it's kind of volunteers and it's a lot of time and effort and it's a lot of abuse at times as well. So it's some clubs there aren't elections. It's whoever wants to do it can do it, and that's no criticism of them because often it's like Man City doesn't have a trust because everything's fine, isn't it, if you're a Man City fan? Whereas other clubs who have had problems, particularly Liverpool, Man United, have got very active trusts that have elections. So we've had elections 3 years in a row. I think there's nearly 14,000 votes cast, which is a lot. It's more than some council elections up here in the northeast. And it's clearly an active, growing, thriving trust, in my opinion. I'm biased. Some people might disagree, but compared to what I found, which was basically nothing, to what I think I'm leaving, I think I've done what I set out to achieve. The other thing was the other reason I wanted to rebrand the trust and relaunch it was to start the pledge scheme. And we've done that. Eventually, we've done that. And I just looked at my workload for the year ahead, and all I want to do is work on that pledge scheme. So I thought, why take a board place from someone else who stands for election and who wants to do something good and positive? And I'm on there in meetings basically saying, I'm just pledge scheme. You crack on with Charlie. You crack on with all this kind of stuff. I'm just pledge scheme. I didn't think that was fair on the trust or whoever. Sorry, my voice is going to be talking too much. Or whoever wouldn't get in. So I just, I'm still as fully motivated and invested as I've ever been. But I purely want to make sure the pledge scheme is okay. I want to run the admin side of it. Still the board's pledge scheme. It's not mine. It's the members. It's not like some private enterprise of mine. But I just thought my time and effort would be better served working on that. We've got some big plans for the year ahead. We're quiet now since the launch. You can't shout about something all the time. But the simple answer is I've stepped back from the board to concentrate on the pledge. Okay.
Now this one's a slight divergent. Somebody just sent this in. I'm not going to say who, but the question they've asked is, does Alex and Pete use anything in particular for their beards to keep them so well looking, or is it just natural? I'm not even going to get into how I got that question sent to me.
I think I need to know who asked that question.
No, I could never divulge my sources. That would not be etiquette like.
There's only one thing that I use, and it's something called Bulldog.
Bulldog.
If anyone knows what Bulldog is, Go out and get it. It's worth every single penny. Keeps it in pristine condition.
Okay. Who says we're not diverse on this channel? I tell you.
We're really utilising Alex's time here, aren't we?
That's
an important question.
Okay, look, we've done a good bit of trust stuff, and I'm conscious we're kind of 35 minutes in, and I did have a question here. Let me.
Can I just ask one more?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, work away while I'm trying to find this.
Just a really sort of easy question, really, but it's one I'm intrigued to ask Alex. What are your opinions with regards to the takeover as it stands right now? Obviously, there are a lot of moving parts with September's CAT case coming up, with the arbitration moved to 2022. When that is, we don't know because we've not actually been given a date with regards to the arbitration. What are your initial thoughts in terms of how this particular takeover attempt from the consortium, PCP, PIF, and the Reuben brothers is going to sort of play out? Are you confident in it, or are you really sort of thinking beyond this now? What are your initial thoughts?
You know what? It's a great question, Pete. I don't even class it as being confident or unconfident. It's just a kind of, like I said before, I want to concentrate on the club as it is, and if we get good news, brilliant. But I don't know if I could be disappointed again, because we've been disappointed so many times. I don't know if you lads or your viewers can remember where you were when that PIF statement came last July. I can remember. It was just I wouldn't even say it was a like tears moment, but it was just I was just stunned. Because we knew something was wrong. It was all the stories about piracy and whatever. Something wasn't right, but I don't think anyone I knew thought that would happen. And ever since then, I'm just trying to remain emotionally detached. And when occasionally I spoke to Amanda Staveley for trust stuff, what offer her help, she is like she has been to fans, publicly when she did that public stuff on Sky Sports. Last text she sent me not too long ago was we are not giving up on this, and you have to admire that, because they've had some punches, by the way. Can you imagine being this bad for us? Can you imagine being them? In the constant disappointment and the constant changing of the goalposts and all this stuff, when it's a huge amount of money, obviously, all of these guys are putting in. So I just, to answer your question, Pete, I know it's not a straight answer, but I'm not confident. I'm not confident. I'm just I'm going to worry about Newcastle United now. What things that we can't affect, like these court cases, what happens then I'll worry about it. When the news comes out about what way arbitration's gone or how the CAT cases, then I'll worry about it. But honestly, there's too much emotional energy gone into it. And like last summer 20 was just every single day, first thing you did, you wake up, you check Twitter. Is it gone through? Has it happened? And it wasn't healthy. Like, not just for me, for lots of people I knew. It was an awful time to be a football fan. So I don't want to put myself through that. So I'm just kind of like, whatever happens. If any of the buyers or Amanda get in touch with the trust and say, we need this, we're here for them. Of course, we're here for them. We need to represent our members who want to take over. So we'll do it. We'll do whatever it takes. But otherwise, it's just like I keep saying, I sound like Steve Bruce. It's the next game. I worry about Villa tomorrow much more than I worry about things that I can't affect. Like you say, Pete, at an unknown date in the future.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I don't think anyone could be as bad as Bruce with his comments. I won't worry about that, Alex. But no, you're absolutely right. I refuse to be hurt again emotionally by the takeover and everything that comes with it. I always remember where I was painting my front porch when the news came through, and actually it came through from a friend. I'd not seen it because I was actually listening to a podcast at the time talking about the potential takeover. I think I might have been catching up on whether it was Pod of the Tide, it might have even been True Faith. I can't remember which one, but I was listening to a podcast when my mate messaged me, who's not a Newcastle fan, saying takeover's done, and I thought he was joking. I thought he was absolutely joking, and then seeing that, it's something. Now it's interesting what you said, because you said obviously from your perspective, it wasn't healthy in terms of checking the Twitter every day and all the updates and all the rest of it. For me, it got me through the lockdown. Having that as a focus, as the PIF in the takeover, for me, it gave me a reason to get up every day. It did, because I was getting up every day, checking Twitter, right, getting on my day. Hopefully there'll be an update. And it gave me a structure, it gave me a focus, because I thought genuinely that our club was going to change for the better, and we were going to be, not just not even the fact that we were going to be potentially the richest club in the world, and I wasn't even getting drawn into the fact that we were getting linked with through the Sun, like all these superstar players that were going to be part of the team. It was just the fact that I was so happy at the potential that we were never going to have to worry about a relegation again, or worry about where we were going to get to 40 points. And I know me and Chris have talked about that quite a lot, because we both feel exactly the same, is that we feel every season it's a dread, and we look at the fixtures and it's a case of where are we going to get our 40 points from? And it's horrible. Yeah. It's a horrible thought. And I never wanted to feel like that again. And I'll be honest with you, I started to get those feelings back with the arbitration date set for July. And I always remember I pulled up, we went on holiday earlier on this summer, and we pulled up at the holiday place, and the first thing that I saw on my phone was the Newcastle statement. As we pulled up, we stopped the car outside where we were staying, and the first thing I saw on my phone was the Newcastle statement saying 2022. And at that point I said, I'm done with it. Like I refuse to get drawn in with a takeover. I refuse to be emotionally invested in anything like that again, because I don't want to go through that again. I would much rather, and you've touched on it as well, Alex, focus on the football on the pitch, no matter how dire it is, no matter how awful we think our manager is. I would much rather focus on the players, on the club, and what's going on the pitch, and support those lads, right, than get drawn into any hearsay or assumptions or, just fantasy talk that may not come true. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. Great points, and you are right, by the way, that when we were locked down March 22nd or whatever it was, 20, and then this broke April 8th, it was like actually there was a bit of positivity in the world, wasn't there, compared to what we were going through. Yeah. Just to clarify on my point about how exhausting it was for us at the Trust, everything moves on, and particularly in football. Last week's news seems like a month ago. I have to remind myself sometimes of what we did. Kind of May last year, June, there was actually a narrative when the takeover happened that Newcastle fans were split. Newcastle fans didn't want Saudi Arabia, Newcastle fans, human rights. There are some Newcastle fans with those concerns. They do exist. But it wasn't a split. Do you know what I mean? There was no split. And we changed the narrative with our member poll. And we are a democratic, open, inclusive organisation for all Newcastle fans. Our poll, we thought, had some weight behind it, because these are real Newcastle fans who paid to be a member. 97% wanted it. We had to spend months talking to media around the world correcting that narrative, and it was exhausting. Doing media from Germany, Argentina. I don't know how German TV company came to interview me in Blythe, Northumberland, and how they got through. The borders were closed just about the Newcastle takeover. I mean, there was no news. Maybe that was that, but it was like, it wasn't on Newcastle getting taken over. It was Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, all that kind of stuff. But it was exhausting doing interview after interview saying you're wrong, and then coming back at us saying Newcastle fans need to stop this takeover, and would they got quite heated at times. Would say, "What are you on about, Newcastle fans?" And it's like, football fans have no say in the way the game is run. Who does it suit? Well, it suits the clubs, suits the Premier League, suits the FA, suits the players, suits the agents, suits the journalists. And all of a sudden, we're about to get something good happening at the club. And they're saying, you need to stop this. And it's like, hang on. Right. First of all, we couldn't. Second of all, we don't want to. And third of all, how come it's our job now when you don't like something, but the rest of the time football fans are essentially shit on? Do you know what I mean? Like, it was a very, very tough time, that. And then dealing with the MPs to get in front of Richard Masters was also like, I was going to bed at like 4 or 5 in the morning, 6 nights a week, trying to make that happen. It was an exhausting process. Dealing occasionally with Amanda Staveley, then dealing with hundreds of MPs, not hundreds, 130. Each MP or nearly every single one wanted a phone call to check that we weren't Rajis, we weren't going to, like, you know, burn the place down or something like that if they didn't do it, and try to convince them that they couldn't just send an email and be like, oh, look at me, I've sent an email on Twitter, aren't I good? We're like, no, we need you to follow up with a phone call. We need you to get behind this. We need you to get your constituents, all that kind of stuff. So it was genuinely like having a second job on top of doing the trust, on top of doing True Faith. So all I think about when I think about that summer 2020, the takeover, is having no sleep. It's like having a newborn baby, but we didn't get what we wanted, unfortunately. So it wasn't, ultimately, we didn't achieve the goal.
The only thing I remember about that is, like, we definitely weren't on holiday.
Yeah.
We weren't anyway. Right, go on, Chris, you ask yours and then we'll move into team
and
weekend and everything else.
Yeah, sorry, Alex. I had one last question for you, mate. So it kind of leads nicely, actually, after what you've just said. So you managed to get in front of Richard Masters in the Premier League, you know, in terms of the questions and stuff like that. You'll be aware, this won't be news to you, but you'll be aware that a lot of people felt that maybe they had a bit of an easy ride in terms of some of the questions. How do you feel when you hear that? Like, were you happy with the questions that were asked? I don't mean, I'm not saying that you personally drew them together. Do you know what I mean? But
no,
you? What? Oh, you did.
Well, me and the rest of the board.
You and the rest of the group.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, sorry, I just didn't mean you individually.
Yeah.
So how do you feel, like, or how did you feel when you know those comments were coming out, and you know when people were saying, oh, they should have asked this and they should have asked that, and I'd like to have seen them be more robust, ask more difficult questions, or did you feel that, like, it was a case of you wanted to ask the questions that you could, but at the same time not burn bridges, so that you'd be able to, you know, possibly be in that situation again?
I think you know, I think anyone who says that I think they're wrong. I'll be honest with you, they're completely wrong. I think it shows a lack of understanding about what we actually achieved in that meeting and the purpose of it. In terms of burning bridges and stuff like that, that's a complete inaccuracy. I appreciate that's not you saying that, Chris. That's you're kind of paraphrasing. Complete inaccuracy. That Thomas Concannon on the board, deputy chair, did an unbelievable job to work with the FSA to get that meeting, or to get it on the agenda. You know, this won't surprise you, lads, but you know, the Premier League only tend to meet with the top 6 trusts. Like, so to get us in there was a big one, and that was the work of it wasn't us necessarily, it was the work of the fan base. Thomas was told he'd have 10 to 15 minutes. He got 35, so he deserves credit for that. Now, in terms of asking the right questions, right, I'm going to put to you, our plan in that meeting was to get him on the record on 3 things. 3 things. There's lots of things mattered. 3 things matter the most. Number 1, did Liverpool and Tottenham try and influence this takeover in any way? I thought he would not even acknowledge it. He categorically, he went after them. He went after the bias and said, it's categorically untrue. Now, we might not like that answer. You might not believe him, but we got him to say it. I can't think of anything more important at the time. I can't think of anything that was more important to fans than if other Premier League clubs had tried to stop this takeover. Point 2, did BN Sport try and stop this takeover for their political dispute? Again, Masters was, you know, he wasn't angry, but he was like almost kind of treated it with a, of course not, what do you think this is type thing. Point number 3, did Richard Masters in the Premier League think the interests of Newcastle United Football Club and Newcastle United fans, have they been protected in this process? And he answered the question. You tell me if I'm wrong. I'm interested in your thoughts, lads. Do you think, but and this isn't, you know, arbitration stuff and all that, and I'll tell you what, point 4 that Thomas got in there, actually, point 4 is why did you reject the takeover? So that's like the 4 key things we felt our members wanted to know from that meeting, what got out of it. I can't think of anything else. You have a think. You think, what else would you try and get from 50? You got 15 minutes, by the way. You got 15 minutes in theory to get answers. So this idea that, you know, Steve Wraith, who's I'm sure a friend of yours, says he sent 20 questions. He did. You got 15 minutes. Do you know what I mean? In one question takes 5 minutes to answer. As Masters goes through his management speak. They were the 4 big ones, all right? And this idea that Thomas should have got into him or he should have given him a rough ride. Forget about future relationships, which is complete horseshit, by the way. I'm annoyed by that accusation because it's completely unfair on Thomas. That completely unfair. He's one bloke who had the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's having to do it in the middle of a working day. He's having to take time off work to try and represent 300,000 to 1 million Newcastle fans around the world. He's got a hostile person in front of him, Richard Masters. He's on Zoom, so he's one click away from being kicked out. And people are saying he was trying to protect a relationship with the Premier League, which doesn't exist. I think that's an absolute scandalous thing to put on a fellow supporter. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not accurate. And the people who've been saying it should know better because it's not fair on him. And I was there. I saw the job that he did. He did his very, very best for the supporters of Newcastle United, in my opinion, and I know he did. So I really resent those accusations. But this idea that you go in and you get into them, you're on Zoom. As soon as you start being antagonistic, whatever word you want to use, you're out.
Yeah, it's done.
You're out. You're only a click away. It's not a press conference. It's not a meeting where you're face to face. So can you imagine the fine line Thomas had to balance there, where he personally wants the takeover to happen, so he's got those feelings inside of him. He's an essential person in War Flags who have been driven to stop doing displays because of Mike Ashley at St James's Park, which I'm sure they don't want to do, but they've taken a principled stand. Then he's got the work that he's put in over the previous 2 weeks to get there, and it was a hell of a lot of work. Trust me, it was not simply go get the supporters trust in for Richard Masters. Richard Masters didn't want to talk about any of this. It was the arrogance of just not even going to talk about it, not even going to, I'll write a letter to Chiona. And by the way, the Premier League said we could put an agreed minute out. We took one look at that agreed minute and just thought, no, we're going to put out what happened. And fuck is if you don't like it, because you can't have a meeting about transparency and then put out what they wanted to put out. So we stuck two fingers up to them then. So people say protect the relationship. Well, we essentially said we are putting out what happened and what was said in that meeting. We don't care about what you think should go out there. It's a matter of integrity. So yeah, I know I've gone on a bit, but people can disagree with the questions. It's fine. I'll put it to you lads if you had to think. What else would you have asked? But in terms of people say, questioning Thomas's integrity about not doing the best for Newcastle fans in the takeover, I find that a quite disgusting accusation, to be honest with you.
I think there's a couple of things in that. Look, it was, for me, I can understand the point of Leo. It was given the time, it was probably a miracle to even get people on that call, and for him to take anyone. So I get that, and I think, one of the questions that I had stuck up there before from Kenneth Wilson was, why is the fan base so divided? And I think it's that fine line that you speak about, Alex, which is if you'd have gone in there and got 4 out of 4 perfect answers, there would still be part of this fan base that would go, well, that's fucking bullshit. And if you got in there and you got 4 answers out of 4 that some people didn't like, that would be bullshit. And if you got 2 and 2, you'd still have that divide where some will go, well, I don't like these two, but I like these two, but I don't like them too because I'm this and I don't like them. So I think it's you out of 100 people, you're never going to please everybody. And some people, we've got Yano there has gone, sure, you got those answers and then chose not to share the answers with the members. But
we're sent out the thing that within hours. I think it was I think the meeting was at 10, and the thing went out at 4 or 5 to members.
I got it because I'm a member, so I remember reading it through. So they did get that. But there's a good question there, or a good mention there from sort of Gary. Really, he said Masters will say that though. I mean, was there an element from yourself and Thomas that whilst you were listening, and obviously it was great for you guys to be in that meeting, and like you said, I mean, I think it tells its own story, and I think that was what maybe you were alluding to, the fact that they only really speak to the top 6 anyway, is that kind of emphasises a lot of the points where their mentality is at. So it was great for you guys to be in the meeting, but was there an element for you and Thomas hearing what Masters was saying, with his responses saying, of course not. We're looking out for the best of Newcastle. BN Sports couldn't possibly be an influence in this takeover. Was there a thought in that? Of course you're going to say that. You're not going to divulge any information that could, harm them as individuals in any way, shape, or form.
You're going to say, you're not going to sit there and go, well, yes, actually, BN, I went out for dinner on their yacht with them, and they gave me a nice big brown envelope, allegedly, and it was fantastic, and I've got a big apartment in Qatar. Like, what do you expect? And I get that. I fully get that. Like,
what I wanted to know was, did you get a feeling of that? Or did Thomas get a feeling of that when he was part of that Zoom call?
Was it sincere? Was it genuine? I see what you mean, Pete.
Yeah.
Again, I'll answer this, but I think I don't want to put words in his mouth. Thomas would be happy to come on and
of course.
through all that. I'm sure he would.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the thing for us is, and I didn't think Masters would even touch those questions, because for me, Amanda Staveley in a piece with George Colkin and in other media as well made those accusations, right? Serious accusations. I mean, if any of that is found to be true, Masters is gone. You could argue that the Premier League as a serious functioning, like, proper institution could be gone. So there are serious accusations. There are accusations that would leave the Premier League open to even more action, because then every single takeover that ever has happened or not has not happened, because that's what Masters said as well. It's not normally a public process, blah, blah, blah. There's all sorts of things that go on that just people don't know about, which will, then tell people, Richard. Like, you wouldn't get as much criticism if fans got more of an insight into what was going on. But the thing for us was, we didn't think he'd mention it because, for the buyers to come out and make that accusation, very serious accusation, I assume they have some, they got that information from somewhere. Someone knows what went on, whether it's leaks in the Premier League. I don't know where they got it from. Maybe that's what this arbitration is all about. I'm really speculating here. I don't have any information on this, because you can't just come out and, particularly in multi-million pound deals, you can't just go on to open a Twitter account and say, look, we've got this proof. I understand that completely. So when for Masters to come so strongly against them, and yes, we didn't expect them to say, like you said, oh yeah, BN, I got a free box from your house, because we're not the takeover off. But what we didn't expect them to come out as hard as he did, because we thought he would ignore it. We thought because he's guilty, just personal opinion. Don't sue me, Premier League. I'm sure to watch. Then we thought that, well, this is great. This is great for the buyers, because they've got the proof. Assume they've got the proof of this happening. There's a denial from him. So whenever it plays out, if they have any proof whatsoever, he's on record. He's on record. That meeting is recorded by the FSA and the Premier League. That he's on record lying. So that's why we thought it was so important. And I hope in this arbitration that they do have proof and they can put that to the judges, and hopefully they know that, hang on, we have cast iron proof this happened, and here's him lying about it. And that would be him done. That would be him. And the whole Premier League board would have to resign. So it would be big. So again, yes, we didn't expect them to just agree with us that it was a sham, then he was a joke and all that kind of stuff. But we didn't expect them to be so vociferous about a lot of things. Well, that's, whether that's just good performance, whether he's just earning his money, who knows?
Yeah.
But if the buyers do have any proof about this interference, then we have got him saying categorically it didn't happen, and he would be banged to rights. And that's why I think that meeting's so important. That's why I think Thomas did such a good job to get him to go on the record about those things.
Okay. Right, let's move on. Brucey was on BBC Radio Newcastle last night. Now, I've only listened to snippets. I haven't listened to all of it. A lot of people talking today said it was fairly staged. People that had some of the tougher questions didn't get through on the calls. Some people, we said earlier, one of the things said on the Amigos show tonight was that, it's a year too late. Did you listen to any of it at all, Alex? What did you make of Brucey's media charm event yesterday evening?
I have to be careful what I say here, because I was going to listen to it and then I heard the first caller and I was just like, this is a stitch up. Do you know what I mean? For the first caller to come on and say that it's a difficult club to manage, and it's like, honestly, it's just, I just thought I'm not spending any time listening to this, like, nonsense put to it. That you put Bruce in that away end tomorrow, and let all 3,000 fans ask him a question. Not one would say this is a difficult club to manage. So for you lads, I was just like, nah, I'm not spending my time doing this.
Okay, that answers that one. So let's get on to team then, and we'll it's probably more depressing than talking about anything else or a possible dead takeover. Obviously, Villa tomorrow. Looks like Shelby's out. Bruce didn't say too much on the injury front today at the press conference. Couple of rumours floating around that Callum Wilson didn't train yesterday. Is having a fitness test late today. Possibly could be out, might not be out. I suppose a couple of things, and I'm sure the lads will chip in. What do you see? Do you think we're going to get anybody else in? Obviously, we've got Willock. In my opinion, great deal. 22 years old, but only really gets the team back to where we were last season. Doesn't get us ahead. Doesn't really strengthen the team. We've let 6-7 players go. Matty's extended a deal. Looks like he's going to go out on loan. A lot of talk tonight on Twitter that doesn't look likely that we'll bring anybody else in. Leaves us pretty much bare to the bones when it comes to the remainder of the season, or certainly into January to the next window. What's your thoughts on the whole, on the team, season, new players? Are you happy with Willock coming in? Give us your view on the current status of the team.
Delighted Willock's come in. I think he's got a massive future in English football. I don't think he'll be here in 3 years' time because he's I don't normally watch the YouTube, the like clips where people clip together the players and that, but you watch Willock's like 2 minutes 20 Twitter reel from his time here. You could come away watching 20 seconds of that, think he was a defensive midfielder, think he was a winger, thinking he was a striker. Honestly, he's such a complete player. I'll say that, yes, you are spot on that we've only matched where we were at the end of last season. We've actually lost a couple of squad players, in fact. Not some of them weren't in the squad, but still their wages are off the wage bill. I think him being here permanently puts us in a slightly better position, just in terms of the end of the last season, we should obviously sign more players, but it's so important. I just think it'll give the players such a lift. I think they believe in him, a bit like when Maximin plays. Like the players just play a bit better around him. In terms of the season, I think tomorrow will tell a lot. I thought there was positives. Me and Pete talked about it on the True Faith podcast about the attacking threat we posed in the first half, and then second half, terrible 11 minutes and then terrible management to not even try and get back in the game, really. I worry that if I don't know if you lads remember, or if you were at the game, we played Villa in November 2019 and we got beat 2-0 when they were newly promoted, and it wasn't even a game. We played them last season and got beat 2-0 and it wasn't even a game. Bruce can't afford that tomorrow. We can't afford to just not turn up tomorrow. There's 3,000 away fans now. He's been here three years. We'll get beat, but because you lose games, you can play well or lose, you can make mistakes at the back, but we cannot. Just too many games last season were catastrophic performances. That has to end, because if they start coming back in, people aren't going to put up with it. They'll not put up with it. And yes, I know the club will always back Bruce and they don't want to sack him, but it's one thing putting them in last season in front of empty crowds. People aren't just going to put up with it. So I'm sitting on the fence a little bit about the season. I don't know how it's going to go, but I think we'll find out a bit more come 5 o'clock tomorrow.
I agree. I don't think anyone could predict a Steve Bruce season as manager of Newcastle United. I don't think anyone could have predicted his first season that he had, which was significantly better than we all thought. I think, he came in 2 weeks before the season started. I was certainly one of them that was convinced we were going down. He didn't do that. I think I mentioned it on the True Faith podcast, and I've mentioned it on Loaded as well. And I still reiterate my standpoint, even though we lost on Sunday, in that there's a lot of fans on Twitter that have made reference to the fact that by signing Willock, we are standing still, effectively, because we haven't, improved the team from what we saw as last season. I mean, I counteracted that by saying, with Willock in this team and with our current team all fit and firing, we went to Leicester and destroyed them for a huge part of the game. We went to Anfield, which is a knocking ground that we never get anything from, and we drew 2-2 and deserved to get a point from that. We drew at Tottenham, at home to Tottenham. We beat a flying West Ham team at the time. You know, we took Man City, although they'd already won the league. We took them to task. You know, we beat Sheffield United at home and Fulham away, which may sound like games we should win, but if you look at previous seasons, we don't win those type of games against those teams at the bottom. We tend to drop points against them. So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, with this current team, we're causing a stir against these teams. If we can take that into this season with that current crop of players, we could really, you know, at least match where we finished last season and maybe go on another level. Because if you remember, from the sort of end of November, December up until sort of February time, we went on a horrendous run. A run that, like, you know, effectively dragged us down into the relegation zone. At that point, you know, we were flying well high, well away from Fulham. We were nowhere near the relegation zone. You know, so if we avoid that type of run again, and we pick up points as we go along, I think we'll be comfortable again. But we've still got an opportunity with a week and a half or so until the end of the window to add to that. So I didn't see it as a real negative situation. However, we're in a position now that fans are back in the stadium, and as we all know, fans are extremely vocal. In particular, away fans. So I think that Bruce, with first game of the season, kind of got away with it on Sunday. But we all know, we've all been to away games, how vocal the away fans are. We're more vocal than any other. And, you know, if we don't perform well and we don't pick up points tomorrow, I do worry about what the backlash is going to be. And that's not what we need. We don't need that. But Bruce has got away with it for far too long. And I know, Alex, you've got maybe something to add to that.
I think your point about you raised Leicester away last season, and that's the one time under Bruce against a decent team. Yeah, we played well at Bournemouth the season before, but they were a mess. That Leicester performance, we need to see that tomorrow. We need to see. I was having a chat on the podcast this week behind our paywall on Patreon. And he said, "Oh, the Leicester game, it was individual errors that were capitalised on." And it's like, yeah, but we forced them. Yeah. For a change, we went to Leicester and we made them make errors because Willock, Wilson, Almiron that game were just pressing relentlessly. It's the opposite of what we expect from Bruce. I always think, to be positive for a second, the players have got it in them. We've seen it. We've seen them do it. They can do it. Why didn't we? And we did it a bit in the first half last week. First goal came from us winning back possession high up the pitch. But we didn't do it in the second half. As soon as we went behind, we just gave up when actually we should have been pressing them to get back in the game. So that's what we need to see tomorrow. We need to see some semblance of what we saw at Leicester, a little bit as well at Fulham, because the players can do it. And that makes me think the manager's the issue because we know the players can do it. So that's what we need to see tomorrow.
I was going to say, Pete, after what you were saying, you know, it's interesting because you're right. A lot of fans do feel like we're kind of standing still in signing Willock. But as you say, when Willock came in January, the performances improved, didn't they, tenfold? And for Willock to get 8 goals in 14 games, the performances improved, the results improved. And so for us to sign Willock and lose the likes of Lejeune, who was on loan, Muto, who was on loan, we lost Carroll, who never got on the pitch, but that's a different story. I won't go into that. For us now to, as Alex rightly says, we've reduced the wage bill. There is an opportunity for us to bring in maybe 1 or 2 loans. I do personally think we'll probably bring 1 in and then maybe keep our powder dry for the January transfer window if we need it. And then we'll probably bring the second loan in if it's required. But I mean, that game tomorrow is massive. And Pete, you're right when you say about the away fans as well. Having gone to many away games and home games, the atmosphere is just completely different, isn't it? And if anything, you would expect it to be probably more toxic at a home game, but somehow it feels more damning, doesn't it, at an away game, because you've got your diehards who go to the away games and they make themselves heard. And Bruce will be under, Bruce will know exactly how the fans feel come full time tomorrow by those away fans, whether there's only 3,000 of them or so. And it could get really uncomfortable for them, especially if we don't put that performance in, as Alex says. Games are lost sometimes, and you don't deserve to. But if the players aren't performing, or they're not being given, the capability to be able to perform to the very best, all fingers get pointed at the manager.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think hopefully Mad Mag Mark is wrong for tomorrow, but apparently we've not won our second league game since 2011-2012 when we beat Sunderland 1-0 at the Stadium of Light. So let's hope that this doesn't continue.
One of them again. I was just going to say, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer today lied in his press conference when he said that Man United have the best away fans in the country. He's lied. Newcastle United away fans are by far the best away fans in the country, bar none. Okay, when you've got 20 league titles and however many Champions Leagues, and how many ever FA Cups and League Cups, you're in a position to take a huge contingent away week in, week out, because you're likely to win games every week. Regardless of how bad we are, we fill out away stands every single week that we play away. Every single week we fill out, regardless. And we sing and we chant and we have the respect, regardless of the result, regardless of what happens in terms of the banter between home and away fans. We have the respect of every opposition that we go to, because we match them and in most cases beat them in terms of how vocal we are. And I think Bruce knows that, and Bruce has got away with that for a season. But I honestly believe that, it will go either one or two ways. And obviously, Alex, you're in there. I'm gutted because I was down to be there. And
we've got rid of it.
The wife's got the hen do that's the priority, and I'll never forgive her for that. But so yeah,
you haven't some match yet, Pete.
Yeah, you'll be back at tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Spice has done you a favour.
No, she wouldn't have, because there's no better feeling than being in the away end.
No,
win, lose or draw with the Geordie fans. And, it will either go one or two ways. We will have, or Bruce and the players will get a rapturous applause for putting in a performance that gets us 3 points, or the fans are on his back and it'll be a hell of a lot worse than what he's received previously. So it is a big moment. But you made a good point. I'm just going to add to it really quickly, Chris. You made a good point about the signings. You mentioned that you think there might be sort of maybe one loan signing brought in. For me, there is no excuse. There needs to be at least 2 signings brought in.
Oh, yeah, there does. Yeah, absolutely.
The way in which they've stripped the wage bill of upwards of 200 grand a week.
Yeah.
We've moved out that weren't even part of the squad. Right, there is no excuse. Matty Longstaff looks like he's about to go on loan. There's talk about Sean Longstaff that's going to be sold. They're both part of the 25-man squad, so there are 2 places there at least that are available to be filled if those 2 players move on. Now,
does Matty count as a squad number?
Now.
He does now.
Right, okay. Now. So he didn't last season, but he does now because I think he's over the age of 21. So therefore, those places have to be filled and filled with quality. So the club can't make an excuse that if they're fiddling and messing around with these deals, they need to get them done. They've got a week and a half to get them done. They have to be done because we've got an opportunity. We've still 1 game in the season to really build and better this season. And if they don't, any negativity that goes their way is on them.
Yeah. Okay. We will get to wrap this up shortly, but before we do that, I want to just give a shout out to Centre Rail for kindly sponsoring Loaded Mag. So Centre Rail, right in the heart of Newcastle Central Station. Bruce Rennick, who runs it in there, the only Bruce we do like. Pop in to see him. I know Julie Baker was in Newcastle over the last couple of days, and she has been in to see Bruce and the team in Centre Rail, and did get sorted out. So if you're in the tune, drop into Central Station, go in and see Bruce. Fine purveyors of craft beers, IPAs, fine ales, some distilled gins, northern meads, and everything else. So thank you for their continued support. Obviously, if you are watching, myself, Pete, and Chris, and Daz and Richie, who aren't with us tonight, just want to say thanks very much for watching. Like and subscribe. We have gone up in some subs. We're around about the 660 mark. Obviously, we want to try and get to our first 1,000. So if you are watching, you like what we do, you like the shite that we chat about and the guests that we get, good people like Alex and everybody else. And we have got some real crackers coming up in future weeks. Hit the like button, and if you'd be so kind to subscribe, we would love that. And I think the last thing I wanted to say was just, obviously, if you aren't part already, get yourself joined up. I know the season is only one game in, but join up the Loaded Mag Fantasy Football. That's the code there. We'll get it out, or I'll tell Daz to get it out on the tweet later on, because he's our marketing director. We'll get him to get that out. Join the league. Come on with me, Chris, and the boys. Have a bit of crack and see who is an even worse manager than Bruce and who finishes bottom. Let's see what happens. And that's really it, lads. From my perspective, want to shout out massive thanks for Alex for coming on. Great to meet you. First time, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch. So thanks very much for that. Everybody that's been watching, thanks very much. And like I say, it was a bit of a weird week. Those that did tweet stuff, both good and bad. Look, it's part of the game. But look, we all genuinely, whatever takeover, whatever manager, whatever owner, we all want the best, which is for those lads in black and white. We want the best team we can get and compete. So, let's try and aim for that. Pete, Chris, anything to add?
Just quickly, I wanted Alex's opinion on what he thinks the score is going to be tomorrow.
2 each, mate. Neither team can defend.
Yeah.
Very true.
I went with 1-1, so there you go. Yeah.
On the away days yesterday, I think I went with Rich, who's a Villa fan. Funny enough, Villa fan living in Newcastle. He went 2-1 Villa. I think I went 3-2 Newcastle. Like Alex said, neither team can defend. So, and even though the games recently have been sort of low scoring, I think there'll be some goals tomorrow, and I think we'll come out on the end. But I think that will depend on whether Callum Wilson's fit. But again, massive thanks to Alex. It's always a pleasure sharing the pod with you. Great knowledge, and you know what? More so than anything, Alex, I really appreciate your sort of upfront and honesty. You kind of left nothing was left off the table, and I really, really respect that from you. So massive appreciation from you. And from a Loaded point of view, from us 5 lads on Loaded, obviously. Martin touched on a little bit of stick that we've got on social media this week. We don't rise to that sort of stuff. We ignore it. We move on, because ultimately, as a channel, we know what we're doing. We are here to sort of work with everybody. We'll work together. There's so much negativity and so much divide in this fan base. We actually want to try and bring everybody together. And again, bringing you on, Alex, who's part of the True Faith, which is a fantastic podcast and a fantastic group. If you haven't watched them, please check them out. Great pods, and they've got me through lockdown in the last year, and I feel sort of privileged to be a part of it. So we're bringing pods together. We're working with everybody. People on Twitter and people watching the shows are not going to necessarily like everybody, but actually we want to get everybody's opinion. We've had Ben Jacobs, we've had Keith, we've had Alex, we've had the likes of Steve Rafe and Steve Hasty and various other people and we will continue to do that as a channel, because it's not just about giving one side of the opinion. It's about giving everybody's side and giving everybody the opportunity to have their say. And you know what? It's been a pleasure to hear Alex's point of views.
Yeah, no, it's been really good. Alex, last word with you.
If you're not already a Trust member, join up. £2 for membership 1 year after. And if you're not supporting the 1892 pledge scheme, head to www.1892pledge.co.uk. Let's build something special for the future of Newcastle United fans. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No worries. No, absolute pleasure. Pleasure was all ours. And that, lads, is it. Anybody that's been watching, Martin, are we letting viewers in with our exclusive for next week, or are we keeping it? What's the exclusive, lads? I'm not even looking at my phone.
Come on, Bart.
Okay.
Go on, Pete. You can. I'm so fucking stupid. I probably don't.
He'll know. As soon as you say it,
I was probably told about this earlier, but I have a memory like a sieve.
Martin, you already know. So if I say to you, Martin, Rich has been doing some groundwork on a particular guest that we're looking to get onto the show next week. So
no, go Martin, on, Pete, you can lash it out, mate. I've got the buttons ready.
Martin, Martin, you go for it. You finish it.
I can't remember. Do you know what it is? I'll fuck his first name up. No, don't make me do it. Right, go on. Up to you.
Okay, so we have. I hope I'm right in Sean Custis.
Yeah,
that's him. Yeah.
Not Curtis. It's Custis.
Not Curtis. It's
Sean Custis,
yes.
Newcastle United fan and journalist, will be joining us next week to discuss all things Newcastle United. Again, we're getting opinions from everybody from all walks of the Newcastle United family. And Sean Custis will be on the show next week. So plenty of promotion next week. Make sure you're available. The times and the dates will be with you very shortly after the Villa game. So massive thanks to Rich for making that happen. And again, we are moving forward.
A really good show with Sean on. Looking forward to that now. Chatting football. That's a good hit for us. So yeah, Richie did a good bit of work there. But look, that's all coming up. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. If you're not already following the guys on True Faith, follow them as well. Listen to the pods; they're really, really good. I'm probably slightly biased because our own guy Pete is on as well. Gets his lass to do the write-ups for him, but anyway, works well apparently. But listen, thanks everybody for watching. We hope you've had a good evening. Be safe, enjoy your weekend, and here's to 3 points tomorrow. So that's us, Loaded Mag and Alex Hurst out for this evening. We will see you during the week and over the weekend. Thanks a million.